Hey everyone, Dr. Kuniak with a weekly video lecture. I wanted to talk about groups in different settings. So we talked about different types of groups previously, where we looked at families, couples, things like that. Groups in different settings have different um, structures, ways of looking at them, and then also literally groupings in the room can cause different um, not outlets, different actions to take place within the group. So let's quickly just consider that the way in which you structure groups in your private practice is likely different than the way that you structure them in an agency setting, is likely different than you will schedule them in a school setting or something like that. School groups tend to be, and I don't know that many of us will run into this, but there is indeed kind of a movement for counseling services to move away from the school counselor's responsibilities and into the responsibilities of a community agency that is operating within the school system. I've been seeing a lot more RFPs for requests for proposals for school-based programs pop up over the years, which are a community agency setting up a program that sends counselors into the schools and then also meets the clients, not just in the school setting, but in their home setting or in the community setting. If you're familiar with, and I've mentioned a lot of times, family-based counseling, school-based is, to me, I'm not in charge of any of the definitions, but to me, it feels like the school version of family-based counseling, because we would meet, when I was in family-based, we would meet with clients in various different environments, but the primary environment where we would meet with them was in the family home. In this case, it seems very similar, but the primary environment that you meet with your clients would be in a school setting. So school groups tend to be a little bit more challenging. I was involved in the creation of a school-based counseling group many years ago, and it was difficult to navigate because we had to target a given population, and then we had to try to figure out a way to get that group to meet during school hours, but where these different students from different classes were coming together for a specific purpose to meet in the group, but they were in different classes. So the logistics were just much more challenging. And so then if you were to do a school-based group outside of the school hours, that also adds logistics that need to be considered. Additionally, when you're working in a community agency setting, groups are kind of very common. Sometimes clients are required to be a part of a group in order to partake in individual counseling or in order to get medication management. Other times the group is a voluntary sort of thing that is just a part of the counseling agency. But in those cases, I would say that that's probably one of the easier ways to get a group started, because the clients are already coming to the agency and then the group is structuring around that. And then I would say that private practice is its own animal, because now you have a pool of clients that you're drawing from your own practice potentially, but the ways in which we target a population to come in for a group are different. So you have to kind of consider, is the place where you have your office able to have a group? Are they able to, provide you that space? Maybe at specific hours of the day. Where my office was located, there was a conference room, and so I could hold group meetings, but it was used a lot because there was one conference room and many different programs in the building where I had my private practice, and so you had to sign it out for specific times. So I had considered having a regular group meeting, but it was really difficult for me to get a routine time to use that conference room, to have it week after week or every other week or whatever the case may be. Not impossible by any means, but it just requires some additional logistics. The other thing to consider is, if you're not just drawing from your own client population, or if you don't have a large client population, sometimes a group is a way to bring in clients to your practice. But how do you do that? Like, how do you advertise that? Certainly, changes in the way that we interact through social media opens up a lot of doors, but it also makes things more complicated. So how do you advertise your group becomes a challenge. So that's one thing. That's one way to look at different contexts that groups appear and the ways in which we manage them. The other thing that I want to point out is groups also can function differently depending on how we have the group structured within the environment where we're in. What I mean by that is, and some of this may be limitations based on the space that you have, but I can recall times where I had like a supervision group meet, and the space where we were meeting was at a university. And so I didn't have the ability to have chairs that didn't have a desk attached to them. And so having, having the chair desk sort of hybrid actually made the group more challenging because people could kind of hide behind their desk space a little bit. So the group was more, it may have just been the group that I was working with, but the group was somewhat more avoidant. It's pretty typical to have the group sit in a circle. However, you can really change the group dynamic by putting together different structures. So by having the group not meet as a circle, do you have like a group, a smaller, adjunct group meet with another adjunct group and they face each other. I had a group leader who really wanted to challenge us at one point and had a different rotating group over here staring at one group member over here, just to get us to feel how you could change the setup of the group to make the dynamic change. In that case, this person automatically either felt like they were being antagonized individually because everybody else was against them, as it were, or they felt like they needed to be more of a leader and do more of a teaching sort of scenario. So I don't recommend doing that, obviously, for your typical group, but I want you to start thinking about how you might structure a group differently if you had a different goal in mind that you wanted the group members to accomplish. Another way that we organize a group in my group counseling experience in my master's program was we would do things where we would have the group self-select. So like the entire class would come together, and then we would have breakout groups that would form based on specific topics that our group leader had us self-select ourselves into, and then bring all of that back to the main group. So there's all sorts of ways that you can make groups function, but I want you to really think about the ways in which you may structure a group based on the environment that you have available to you, or the restrictions associated with the place in which you are trying to meet, and then what the purpose of your group is. Because I think it's easy to get into the feeling of, having just a circular group meeting and talking about various hybrid topics, or talking about drug and alcohol counseling, because we have a lot of groups, as we've talked about before, in drug and alcohol settings. But what is it that you want your group to accomplish? And so how do you need to manipulate the setting using the structure in which you have to be able to try to accomplish what you want to accomplish? Just some things to think about there. And that'll be it for today. So I look forward to seeing you all at our next class meeting. Certainly reach out with any questions, comments, or concerns, and hopefully this gets you thinking about some other ways to do the work that we're doing.